All right. Has everyone excited? Once again, thank you so much for joining on time. So, we are about to kick off our seventh webinar on operational excellence on scaling IoT device management from 1,000 to 100,000 and more devices. As IoT deployment continues to grow across industry, as you know, from manufacturing to agriculture to smart cities, healthcare, logistic, energy, any place, any sector, the real challenge is no longer connecting devices. The internet is available, 5G is available, satellite communication, LoRaWAN, Sigfox, long range communication. So generating data and piling up petabytes of data, it's already possible. But the challenge is operating them reliably, securely, and efficient at scale. So this is where we're talking about. These are not application you are implementing a sensor on top of an Arduino and or in a Raspberry Pi. This is something we're going to talk at a scale where massive scale IoT or internet connected or network connected devices, how they efficiently can communicate, how efficiently the data can be utilized even for generative AI applications, and how efficiently we can secure the entire system. Questions like how do you onboard thousands of devices in a minute? And how do you monitor device health and its productivity? So this is where we're going to talk about. This is not just basic IoT ecosystem. We talk about scale. It's all about scale, guys, today. So where you are in IoT architecture, IoT system integrators or product manager, operational engineers or business leaders, we believe today's session will be give you amazing value, practical insight, and real world experience and examples to massive scale IoT deployments. Without further ado, I'm more than happy to invite our panelists. We have an amazing panel from security and ecosystem partners, and for telecommunication industries, we have an amazing ecosystem with perfect resource people for this particular agenda. Without further ado, let me introduce our first presenter for the day, Mr. Bhupinder. So, Mr. Bhupinder is an IT transform leader bringing over 25 years of experience in IT services and management ecosystem. He is an MSP practitioner who spent his career leading massive IT transformation and engagement from some largest global organization. And especially he is the head of our Device Pulse AI ecosystem as well. Pleasure to meet you, and over to you, Bhupender.
Thank you very much for that very generous and fulsome introduction there, Miller. And I just want to first of all apologize for my kind of very casual appearance because it is blazingly hot here in London, and that's why I'm just trying to keep cool in this. Houses are built to keep heat out. They're designed to keep heat in. And on that, what I want to so it is really the design piece. I wanted to talk about IT operation, IoT operation, and the complete life cycle. So you need to design the process, and then you need to follow the different the workflows and the different process threads within that. To me, as I said, as Miller explained, I come from an IT transformation and an ITSM background. I've worked with the Computer Sciences Corporation, with BMC. I was actually leading the BMC transformation that team. But it is, to me, it is very simple. Any sort of service management needs to begin with IT asset management, and that's not because that's my background, but if you don't have the visibility of what you have, and I've gone to a lot of now IoT fleet operators, and I've asked them, how many IoT devices do you have? And they look at me with surprise in their eyes, saying, "Well, we've told you. Here's a spreadsheet which says that we've got 1,200 devices." And I said, "Are you sure?" So when we run the discovery, it returns back 3,000 devices. So where did the extra ones come from? So there is a life cycle to IoT, just to what happens in IT as well. So IT, same thing. People hide things under their desk. They put things into cupboards. With IoT, it is a dispersed fleet. We have things in the local networks, the wide area networks. We have them dispersed in the remote locations. If you think about weather stations, these things are in mountainous regions. How does a normal discovery tool get hold of those devices and bring them back into a consolidated view? To me, what we have there's a journey in terms of IoT operations. The first thing, as I just explained, is about IoT device visibility. How many devices does an operator have? Does a customer have? And what exactly is that figure accurate? That is where discovery comes in. So there are tools out there which we need if we're going to be especially scaling. I was talking to a hospital which was adding another wing and adding, I think, it was another 10,000 IoT devices, medical devices. So they were saying we're going to have all of these devices. So can we manage? And I said currently at the moment, because you don't have the visibility, it's not connected. There's no way. Well, I didn't kind of put it that bluntly, but there are processes that you need to follow. So the first thing is discovery. How many IoT devices do you have? Do you have complete visibility of the IoT fleet? And then how do you connect them? How do you actually bring them into a consolidated dashboard? And then you can see the entirety of your fleet. And the second step is very important as well. So discover, aggregate, and consolidate. And then it is making sure that in terms of the IoT operational platform, that too is not just something which you just say, I'm going to add extra capacity to this in terms of infrastructure or technology. It is, so you got people, you got processes, you got technology, you got information, you got data, you got security, you got suppliers. All of those domains need to be considered. And this second piece is where we now start thinking about what exactly are we doing. So you have multiple device management systems out there. We've got a consolidated view now. Now what we're doing is we're now creating a consolidated IoT device management system as well. So not just device management in terms of saying you have X number of devices. This is now looking at the devices in a medical institution. Those medical devices are helping to deliver health outcomes to patients. What we're doing is we're looking at the health of those medical devices so that they can actually deliver those health outcomes back into the patient arena. So it is very important to be able to say, not just I have visibility, but I now know exactly how that device is behaving, the parameters within which it needs to behave, and the health telemetry data that we need to capture. And then we need to see exactly if there are anomalies, if there are any issues or events that we need to look at. This is why AI now steps in, and with the learning models that we have, is to make sure that we are able to then take any additional IoT devices into the fold. So AI plays a part. That we have automation, we have AI, and they both need to be managed equally within this ecosystem. And then we're managing those. We integrate with. We're not reinventing IT service management platforms. So Charles is going to talk about Symphony AI. One of the things that we need to be able to do is we need to detect that event. We need to be able to manage, take out the noise, and just look at the specifics of what is happening. And then if there is an incident or an event that needs to be logged, we then pass it across. We rate an incident in an ITSM platform like Symphony AI. So we are then part of an integrated chain. Just as we talk about connected devices, we have connected platforms. The discovery platform connected to an event management and monitoring and management platform. That is now linked into an ITSM platform. And then also, lastly, with the CRA Act. So in EU, we have the Cyber Resilience Act. And we have the Digital Operational Resilience Act as well, which are active, which are going to be people are going to be heavily penalized. So any IoT operator, not just IoT, but IT operators are going to be heavily penalized if they don't conform to those frameworks. So this is where security then comes in. So discover, manage, and then secure. So in terms of the workflow and in terms of the key components, that to me are the main pieces that IoT operations need to be aware of. How do they discover? How do they then collect the data that they need to make sure that they're managing the health of those devices and then integrate them into standard platforms like ITSM, and also the standard integrations into security platforms like the device authority, which Julio will talk about, end to end. So we need to look at the end to end piece. We can't simply say we're going to do this piece because that's what we're specialized in. We need to start just as with the IoT fleet, different devices, different sets of parameters that they're operating under, and we just need to make sure that we have a partnership and ecosystem that is able not just to say yes, we can handle 1,000 devices more, but in this particular case, we have 20 billion devices, IoT devices out there in the field at the moment. By 2030, it's going to be around 50 to 53 billion. How do we cope with that? It's going to be a combination of integration, making sure the right platforms are integrated and they're talking to each other, the use of AI, and the use of automation. And I am now going to hand over because I know that the next speaker is going to be, well, actually, I'm going to hand over it back to Miller. So that is the framework within which IT operations need to be thinking about, and those are the types of platforms that need to be integrated and connected.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on time. And you thank you for walking through us the entire IoT life cycle and from discovery to registration to intelligent operation and automated framework. So this is the full cycle, people, we're going to talk about today. Once the devices are visible, connected, and generating operational events, the next challenge become operational response. As deployments scale into tens or hundreds or millions of devices, IoT alerts can be quickly overwhelmed. Traditional IT operations become useless. They are integrated into enterprise service management. That brings us to a perfectly to represent our next speaker. Joining us from Symphony AI, Charles will be exploring how IT service management platform can efficiently manage and scale the entire ecosystem. So, Charles, the president of Enterprise IT Division of Symphony AI, Charles, with more than 2 decades of experience in focusing on IT leadership, we are in serious people to people. Digital transformation and future work, he has held roles in spanning IT operational, large-scale operation transformation programs, executions, and technology analyzing, advising, and organizations from startups to Fortune 500 companies. He driving growth and innovation for every single scale. So before joining Symphony AI, Charles was publishing principal analyst of DX Report and founder of DX Institution as well. It's a pleasure to have Charles on board and having a leader like you with so much of experience. Charles, over to you. Please lighten up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with all of you today. And I guess if I can sum up my background so you sort of understand what I'm bringing or kind of the perspective I have is that I'm an IT operations guy at my core. I ran IT operations for about $1 billion healthcare firm 25 some odd years ago, who's counting, and then ran large scale transformation programs for another decade, and then spent the last decade really as an industry analyst, author, and speaker, really kind of looking at this broad swath of enterprise technology. And it's funny for me having this conversation today because almost a decade ago, when I first sort of put on the analyst hat, I was asked to write about IoT and this the sort of the industry 4.0 and this whole movement of where this was all going. And it was if you guys remember, if anyone's old enough like me, it was like a massive amount of hype. And then like the hype cycle always has, right? It kind of then kind of fades away and the real work gets done. And now we're kind of coming back as this is becoming reality. And it's like people are saying, how are we going to actually deal with this today? And I think from a service management perspective, it's a fascinating challenge because if I'm going to be blunt about it, none of the service management platforms as they exist today are set up for this. Nothing, right? And it's part of actually a broader movement because I think what the reason that we're in this really interesting time and space is that IoT is colliding with this broader momentum around machine generated data, right? If you think about an IT service management system, it was fundamentally designed from a process level on down for the human actor, right? The entire premise was that it was humans that would identify a problem, that it was humans that would say, hey, something is broken, something's not working. A ticket would be logged, and that ticket's job was to coordinate the activities of the people whose job it was to respond to that issue, that incident, and to actually get it fixed. But we're living in a completely different world today, right? Where it is machines that are actually generating, in many cases, those signals, identifying that something is breaking. And the purpose of that incident now is to, in fact, triage and kick off other machines, other devices, other automations that are then going to respond to that in many ways, right? And so we have circumstances now or occasions where if this is done, if we are taking this approach where you literally are having this massive flow of incidents that is never touching a human, right? It's being detected by a machine and being automatically resolved and remediated and brought to closure. And not there's two challenges with that, and an opportunity. The challenge first is the scale one that we're talking about. How do you now, have a system that can handle that? Because the reality is ITS systems across the board are built on relational databases, old school sort of approaches to how we capture this data. And for the scale of human-driven intervention, it was perfectly fine. Now you multiply this at an X factor, of instance that are flowing through the system, and you've got just a raw traditional scale problem. Maybe you can solve this through horizontal scaling, probably not. You're going to have all kinds of challenges with that. But the second problem you have is visibility into it. How do you then maintain continuity if I don't have humans touching these tickets, if they're flowing through or they're only doing light touches or very narrow banded touches? And so those are the two challenges that you have to grapple with. And then there's an opportunity in that all that data provides the richest source of opportunity for this AI world that we're living in, right? Because AI is driven fundamentally by data. It's really two things, I would say. To me, AI is fundamentally both based on data and workflows. If I can understand my data and I can have confident trust in my workflows, then I can automate almost anything. I can use AI to build resiliency into these systems. And so when you think about the power of machine generated data and machine generated actions, and now infuse or inject the power of AI on top of that, you have a tremendous opportunity to truly transform the way IT organizations operate. And that's going to be necessary because, as has always been the case in the history of IT, is that every time we have a massive breakthrough in the ability to expand and extend our operational capabilities, it is almost always matched with an expansion of the operational dynamics and the complexity with which we have to manage, which is why whenever I talk to CIOs and I ask, what are your problems? What are the things that are keeping you up at night? It's always the exact same things. The context has changed, but it's the exact same things because every step that we move forward with the technology and our ability to manage is matched with the complexity of the underlying systems we are having to manage. And so this is, I think it's reaching its really interesting touch point today because this is becoming a reality. I have a good friend of mine who just left as the CIO of a large healthcare system in the Pacific Northwest, and he was talking to me about the fact that he had completely sort of crossed this divide, where yes, he was the CIO and the CTO, but he didn't just run IT anymore. All right, he had all these medical devices, and it wasn't that they still had a facilities group that was responsible for if the MRI machine broke down. But these things were so interwoven together in the delivery of care that they couldn't be isolated. We couldn't afford the time to say, well, facilities is saying this machine is broken. Oh, but we've got the network as the issue. So let's go have IT deal with that part. Oh, it's connecting to the server for the input of the data. We can't have, right? There are too many moving parts and they're all integral role in how this is in fact managed. And so the challenge is how do you actually deal with that? And my basic contention, our contention at Symphony AI is that you don't, at least not with the architectures that we've used in the past. So, one of the things that this isn't necessarily meant to be an ad for what we're doing, but I believe that we're doing what needs to be done, what every IT service management organization in the industry is going to have to do to actually not even compete, just survive in a world in which you have this rate of data being generated and you have to be able to manage at this level and at this scale. And we basically ditched it all. So we are basing everything on a brand new, what we're calling a unified data fabric. It's not a single database. It is actually a stitched together compilation of actually 6 different types of databases. So we have a time series database, a graph database, a vector database. We're moving away from, we do have a traditional SQL store for historical and legacy connections, but then we're predominantly based on a document store. And then of course we have a data lakehouse. And we're stitching all of that together to meet all of the different demands. And so that we can ingest data. Now, if you give me a time series data feed, I can ingest that data and stream it and manage and connect without blowing up my document store for all my transactional flows, right? And likewise, I don't have to disrupt my ability to run reporting off my data lakehouse because I'm disaggregating all of this. I'm letting a data source work how it's designed within the context, whatever that context is. But most importantly, what that does is it allows me to create a unified data center, or unified data source rather, that I can now federate, and that becomes what I'm calling a system of context. Because even in the case, Bhupinder, you're talking about that you guys are going to do all this with the IoT, and I think that's critical and important, no different than I would use an event management system for traditional IT devices and then ingest those instances as they come out of it. I still need the ability to create correlation, right? So going back to my buddy's example. I have a problem with the device. If you guys aren't able to see the rest of the environment, then we may be missing part of that context, right? Or I may be seeing things that are happening within a building or within a part of my subnet or any number of different things. If everything is in a unified data plane and I can have a system of context, then suddenly an AI system that I put on top of that can see all of that and now create those relationships, can understand that, oh, this is happening, but it's not in isolation. And so as an
Mm.
IT organization who is going to be, whether they own it or not, implicitly involved in the supporting, because at the end of the day, we're all here, if we're in healthcare, to make sure our patients get the best care possible, to make sure our machines are running so that it's effective, right? It doesn't matter where the problem is coming from. We need to be able to identify it, understand it in context, and then be able to act on it as fast as possible, whether that is a human taking that action or a system taking that action. So I think this fundamental architectural rebuild, and in our case, and I know I'm all over time, but in our case, that we've then abstracted our service management system. Our service management system is now nothing but an abstraction layer sitting on top of our unified data fabric and this workflow orchestration engine that we sit on top of that. And service management is just how you orchestrate it. And once you do that, it's
Exactly.
anything. It's everything, right? So that's where we're going. And that's, I think, the key to how you scale this and how you start moving into this
Definitely, yeah.
machine-driven world. All right, back to
Thank
you.
you so
Sorry.
much, Charles. Yeah, thank you so much, Charles. I mean, it gives a complete perspective on how massive scale or scaled up IoT ecosystem can be handled through enterprises ITSM workflow, and we that lead to us for a very specific ecosystem. Before we can efficiently manage the incident, we first need to complete the operational picture. Most organizations don't operate in a single device ecosystem. For example, let's say large operation like telco ecosystem, they operate with switches, routers, they have their own gateways, massive operations. So, and equipments, multiple manufacturers often across different platforms. So the next question become how we consolidate all that information into a single operational view. So that Charles lead from the ITSM ecosystem, how everything works, and bring everything into one interface. That's something very much important. And it's a perfect time to invite Victor. Victor will discuss IoT consolidation, and it's a great single plan of class. That's where we are all moving towards. And it's my honor and pleasure to welcome Victor. And Victor is the CEO of Intellect, IoT Lect, and leading IoT software developer with more than 25 years of IoT industrial experience and automation industry. Over his career, Victor had drive evolutions of companies' flagship platforms for device management platforms to M2M platforms, then IoT platforms, and later unified digital enterprise platform. His path began in industrial automation and including year-long practice on PSA and in France, and combined hands-on software development with network operating centers and engineers in early years. So Victor now playing a key role on evolution of IoT platform, and I think he can give an amazing view how everything and different ecosystem can communicate in a unified interface of a glance. So Victor, over to you. Enlighten us. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Miller. My pleasure to be here today. So our platform, the Yotellect, which is almost like Intellect, that's where the names come from, is an IoT application enablement platform. But with our technology, we have a practical experience of scaling a system to 500 million data points. And this system is actually an IT system, and specifically it's a network management and monitoring system for a telecom operator. So I'm just following up Charles, and in a moment speaking about an IT software on an IoT webinar. And is this system really an IoT? So to our opinion, it fully is, because here we have devices, we have metrics, we have all this stuff like we have to scale the system. And if we're speaking about visibility, it's normally said as like it's monitoring. It doesn't bring much value in 2026. But at this scale, at 1 million devices scale, even monitoring crops up a lot of challenges. I will try to keep my speech very practical, so no big words today, sorry. So we are speaking about a system which has 1.1 million devices. Each of them has like 32 or 64 network interfaces, and each of them gives us about 20 metrics. If we multiply those numbers, we get quite a spooky number, which is over 500 million. And again, we have experience with building a classic IoT systems, which is up to 200,000 devices, industrial systems with over 5 million tags, but and they have their own challenges. But this one, the NMS, it's the biggest, and the challenges we faced here is something which I would like to share. So what are these challenges? First of all, the system is on premise. It's not fully isolated, but it cannot run in the public cloud. And all the perks you can get from big three, like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, they avoid. You can't do big data in classic way, and so that it means the installation, administration, and proper setup of Cassandra clusters, which host all those time series data, is a problem of the customer, of our partner, and sometimes even our problem. Also, there's a huge stream of events flowing in from this hardware. So figuratively, the peaks are over 1 million events per second, and classic systems, they include collectors, which directly face the hardware, the devices, and the core servers. But here, we need to correlate events on a network topology, and no single server can fit this topology in memory, and event correlation is an in-memory process. So basically, we had to add the third layer of servers, which we call hubs, and we ended up with a very custom, quite a sophisticated architecture, which includes the collector servers, the hub servers, and the core servers. And again, visibility here is not a simple thing. So at each of those three layers, we have to plan which data do we keep at the lower level, and which data do we need to filter, which data do we need to compress, secure, and send to the higher tiers of the system. And again, there's no chance to bring everything to the highest level. So again, at all those two levels, we have different ways of filtering and stuff. Overall, scaling to such numbers is not something like adding servers to a cluster. It's not automatic. Again, every single server is something that you plan, you do like in manual mode, and it's not like how it works in serverless architectures of public infrastructure platforms like Google. Everything comes at a cost. You need to buy those servers, like physically install them. Virtual machines, but some of at this project we even have some bare metal servers. So after all, we plan our platform having the performance as the top requirement for any feature that we're implementing. For many years, we try to keep it fast. But to complete such a project, we had our engineers and our developers spending days and nights, like almost 2 years, trying to figure all the performance bottlenecks within the system. And this is long because when you see and fix the first one, only at this moment you can reach the second one. And when you fix the second one, you see the third one, and only after fixing all the bottlenecks, you get data flowing in smoothly, and you get visibility throughout the whole infrastructure. And again, let's say we're speaking about AI agents, like all those events now are all about AI. So, but AI agents in this huge ecosystem, they need very structured foundation. So they need constraints. They need well-described data model. And again, our platform is something which enforces this foundation and allows the MCP servers and the agents to perform in a smart way, allowing both the reconfiguration and optimizing daily operation of the system. So again, we're speaking about a critical infrastructure, and the most complicated thing about AI agents here is constraining them, making sure that they will not do something they're not supposed to do. And this constraining is still quite a manual process, I must say. So they dwell in a well-defined environment, the agents. So just to recap, the scaling process and providing visibility for the quite a regular ecosystem of network devices might seem very easy, but when numbers grow, the architecture becomes complicated, and there's a lot of challenges that are cropping up all the time. So it's all solvable, but it's a joint work of the vendor, the partner, and customer as well.
True. Right. I mean, thank you so much, Victor. This is really mesmerizing. Being on the IoT industry for 11 years, we can definitely feel the pain, like consolidating different sensors, different devices into one interface and make sense that all meaning to one particular outcome. That is a really hard thing. But it's leads to one of the most important point nowadays everyone is talking about. When there are million devices, we are consolidating and into one ecosystem and one infrastructure. It creates one of the most important point when it comes to this question of security and how we are secure. And everything we consolidate into one ecosystem to get an interface, and it become a single point of failure, and it accessing a single point of failure as well. So security become one of the most important component when it comes to a scaled IoT ecosystem. So with the new regulations such as EU Cybersecurity Resilience Act and DORA replacing the great emphasis on connected device security and GDPR, especially in the medical device ecosystem, HIPAA, and all of the compliances getting into play. And it's most important, we're going to talk about the security side of it. I'm pleased to introduce Julio, who is discussing about security and IoT fleets and enterprise scale. So Julio is the director of pre-sales and engineer at Device Authority. He is an absolute expert when it comes to zero trust architecture for IoT, and he is leading the change and leveraging AI for predictive device intelligence. Julio, it's an honor to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Miller. So, hi, everyone. We have talked about how we can connect and scale all these devices. And one of the things that people usually leave as the last step when they're designing and deploying networks is unfortunately security. So right now we are seeing in the market two main drivers, and actually Charles talked about one, which is the consolidation or the convergence of all these different type of devices or these different type of deployments. I'm referring to IoT, OT environments, and now IT being the one that sometimes it's like the governing everything. The second one is the natural or organic growth of these IoT and OT deployments. So, but today, the reality is that most companies are not struggling to connect new devices anymore. They're struggling to secure at scale. So when we talk about security, we like to use a philosophy that is based on secure by design and also security lifecycle. When we talk about lifecycle, we are referring to all the steps that keep that device secure from the moment that is deployed and rolled into the IoT platform that will be managing that device, the ongoing lifecycle management, which is the provisioning of credentials, the management of the device identity, the rotation of those credentials, then the compliance that comes as the result of this device sending, receiving data, processing data, connecting to your networks. So now this device has to comply to specific security frameworks and policies. Our platform allows to do the complete identity access management, certificate lifecycle management that could be used as the credentials for those devices, and also the risk and compliance piece that those are continuous risk monitoring, scoring, and also gap analysis that allows to see if this device is complying with our customers' security frameworks and policies. So as these organizations scale globally, we are seeing major challenges. The first one is how do I establish trust between all these different devices? Next, we see that how could I securely generate, distribute, and rotate cryptographic keys? Everybody knows that now the industry is being more aggressive in the way that we are rotating all these certificates on the devices. So now you cannot rely on humans to maintain and support those devices. You need to bring automation so you can have an end-to-end process that will allow you to do zero trust in addition to the generation, rotation, and distribution of those keys for all these devices. Next, we see people asking and being concerned about how to automate security without adding more operational overhead. So how can I scale my networks, my device footprint without adding more people? And the most important thing is how could I do all this at scale, right? So how can I secure my devices, be efficient, and also support the growth that my business and my networks are demanding? So we're also seeing the traditional approach is often relying on a manual process. Unfortunately, people are still using spreadsheets. Sometimes they are using disconnected PKI systems to sign into certificates. And again, a lot of pressure for the people that are supporting and maintaining all these devices. This causes an issue because this approach, unfortunately, cannot scale at the rate that these devices and deployments are required. So let me give you an example. This is a real customer that came to us asking for help, right? This is a global automotive component manufacturer that operates multiple secure production facilities around the world. And they needed a way to securely transport cryptographic keys, or basically encryption keys, from the OEM cloud to these remote manufacturing plants. So inside those factories, the keys will be injected directly into the electronic vehicle components during production. And then those components will be part of the finished vehicle. So the most critical requirement, in addition to securely transport those keys from the OEM all the way down to the device, was that at the end of the process, they needed to maintain a complete audit trail that connected all the generated keys back to the origin, ensuring compliance, traceability, and accountability, which is very important, especially when you are dealing with components that are considered mission critical in this high-risk type of applications. So essentially, they needed to secure the entire chain of trust from the key creation all the way to the finished product. So how do we do it? So the first step was to make sure that these devices are authenticated and authorized by the platform. How do you do that? So we have a process that allows to dynamically generate a device root of trust that is used during the device registration and authentication with the Keyscaler platform. So this reduced the key exposure and improved the security posture of those devices. The encryption keys were created and stored securely in the platform and then distributed from a centralized data center to the manufacturing facilities around the world. Again, this was done automatically using policy-based rules that we can create in the platform that only allowed authenticated devices to access and pull those keys from the centralized repository where these keys were stored and received from the OEM. We also provided a way to have a granular assignment of the permissions for all these devices that will go and query or request keys from our platform. So the customer could define policies that will say, okay, this device only can request keys for this batch or from this OEM or for this specific manufacturing run. So this allowed an end-to-end automated process, which will enable devices to securely connect, register, authenticate, and pull keys automatically from the platform. This also can be extended to other type of applications. So imagine devices like medical devices. So they're dealing with very sensitive data. In addition to, imagine if these devices are compromised, now you have the potential to injure people or even cause death. So with our solution, yes, with our solution, we're able to register devices, authenticate devices, following the Zero Trust framework, and allows to provide an end-to-end lifecycle management.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Julio. And we have a question. Probably I can ask in the end, but it's pointed to you, Julio. If you want to answer from the social media, cybersecurity is often seen as expensive and complex. If you were advising a company just beginning to scale its IoT deployment, what is the very first security investment you would recommend?
Yes, the first one will be to find a solution that will allow you to do secure device registration and provisioning. So in our world, registration, see this as a two-legged thing. Registration will be between the device, the physical thing, and the platform, and then the provisioning. The provisioning goes to the IoT platform or the application layer that will be managing those devices. So after you enable the trust between the thing and a solution like ours, then we can go and create those things or provision them into the IoT platform. After that, you enable that foundation of trust, and then you can start layering more things like certificate lifecycle management, risk and compliance, continuous monitoring, and so on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julio. Hope the audience get the answer. And thank you for highlighting the importance of security and connected devices. Today's is increasing regularly landscape. Like a couple of weeks back, so Sam Altman just explored with experimenting with the AI, which went through haywire and completely become rogue, and without any human intervention, it just hacked another system and went through. So now we are in a system, not
apparently without anybody's help. Let me put
exactly. That's what. So we are not only worrying about hackers and scammers and all. We need to worry about high performance computers, and they are sitting every single device at the moment. So, I mean, we are talking about a very, very important incident management, fleet visibility, and security side of it, and that's bring to everything together. So I would like to welcome Ruben to talk about everything, because we talk about the life cycle, we talk about the entire architecture, how ITSM ecosystem can coordinate hand in hand with IoT. At the same time, how IoT can be scale up and bringing to an IoT platform and bringing to one interface and have the entire alerts, visibility, and VI and everything on place. And finally, how this scaled up IoT ecosystem from like millions of devices can be secure, what kind of areas we have to prioritize in terms of security wise. We have discussed everything. So now it's time to a point where we have to combine everything and talk about scale IoT operation across the technology infrastructure with people, process, machines, and so on. It's my honor to invite Ruben Kanapati Pillai, so our very own speaker, and he was an experienced veteran entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, one of the unicorn entrepreneur, we would say, exit companies for more than $1.3 billion, and a technology's humble person with 35 plus US patents, if I'm not mistaken. So over to you, Ruben. The stage is yours. Please enlighten us.
Thanks, Miller. It's a very interesting and timely sessions we are having. So I'm going to look at the book end of it. I've been in the Silicon Valley for more than 3 decades and looking at the beginning of the life where the cell phones were just coming out, and with the Motorola, the bulge phone to come to GSM. I worked on the GSM chipsets, which went into Samsung devices and all that, at the beginning of it. And the other side of it now, if you look at it, the physical AI, which is going to be the next frontier, where from manufacturing or industries, healthcare, all of these areas, you are going to be using so many devices, so many connected devices. It is going to be. So I'm going to be more focusing on the physical AI. So if you guys don't know, go and take a look at this. If you can do a search on physical AI, people talk about it with Jensen highlighted, as well as many of the other people. And where what is going to happen is there are going to be millions of devices collecting information. That's what we talked about it. And you can just focus on the IT, which is our old way of thinking, where ITs and computers and connected. But what is going to happen is in the future of job or future of work, all the industries are going to be, some level of instrumented devices with sensors. That's where the SenzMate comes from. All of these informations are going to be collected. And as Julio talked about the security side of it. As Charles talked about the multiple databases of it. All of these things are going to come together, need to give the security and scale. So if you look at it, the physical AI, what that is not just the computer sitting and doing things and all that. There are robotics. There are devices moving around on the street, in the autonomous cars, and there are going to be, farming sector. There are going to be so much data going to be collected. So the first part of it, which we, got lately in the last speaker talked about, the security side of it is so critical because you want to protect your information, you want to protect personal information of people, as well as IP, intellectual property of corporations, has to be protected if you don't have that security side of it. So that is first important. The second side of it is the magnitude of data which is going to come out of all of these devices are going to be so much. So I want to give you some of my lessons about when we started the cell phone market. If you look at it, there are so much communication, people will be talking, and you are connecting with a very, very low bandwidth connectivity to the world. And I learned from many, many experts at that point who were working on military information technology for wireless and cell phone. About 99% of the time is noise or no data is being transmitted. Only 1% of the time you are really transmitting real data. So it's a similar thing here. If you look at it, there are so much data is being collected, need to be sent out and all that. How do you send those information? That is where the device management come into play, based on the locality, based on the need of what the field is doing. What are the information you are trying to gather? You don't want to overwhelm the bandwidth of the communications and just send garbage full of data, and then now the $1 trillion of compute people are spending to weed through all that. So if this can be protected and secured and weed out at the edge, it can be very good. So that is where the device management comes, after security. How do you make this one efficient and send appropriate and necessary data with, maybe sometime compression or some algorithmic work at the edge? So those are the areas where device management side of it comes into play, where it can sit there and observe what is happening. If you are overwhelming the bandwidth, it can go and start doing more processing to reduce. If the bandwidth is not overwhelmed, you don't want to waste, because at when you are doing processing at the edge or at the IoT device level, you are going to be spending energy and those part of it. So you need to make sure how do you balance all of those things. So this is where the device management comes into play. Our today's topic is very appropriate. So you can do it in one device, you can do it in 10 device, you can do it in 100 device. So suddenly you popped in and millions of devices, because when you have 5 sensors or 6 sensors and you have all this information coming out, there are going to be so much information, and then you have this much scale of devices coming into play. So how do you manage that? So this is where I really appreciated Charles' conversation on how you have these, when you have 6 different database collecting this information, and how do you manage and all that. So if you can bring those kind of knowledge into one observability platform, and then utilize that one to, based on what is the important point there. Is it a power? Is it a cost? Is it a bandwidth? Is it different thing? So if you can put all of them together through the management platform, and then you efficiently use this one to provide insight, because that is the third part of it. Yeah, because you can look at the security, you can look at the data part of it. What is it all you are doing that one to make intelligent decision at the end? So that is the whole purpose of it, because if you want to make an intelligent decision, you need all of these, but that is where you get value out of it. And that is where we need to focus on how we do this management platform appropriately, and then make sure the return on investment is there for our customers, our partners. So that is where I think we come together as a community. We believe it is important to put everything together and make it efficient, secure, and cost effective for people to be able to utilize this one for improvement of our humanity in the future. And I believe strongly on these physical AI and IoT devices coming in to help all of this. So let's work together and see how we can improve this one in a secure manner. Miller, over to you.
Thank you, Ruben. It's a perfect sum up, and it's an amazing panel today. Outstanding session. And as an IoT entrepreneur, I learn a lot. So we had one question, and we let me check if there's any other questions on the social media. Yes, we do have one question again for Julio. If you could give organization just one piece of advice, securing the IoT deployment of 100,000 or even million devices, what would it be? So I think, do I already ask this question, or Julio? The question is like, you could give organization just one piece of advice for securing an IoT deployment of a million device. What would be it?
Again, follow the zero trust framework. Always authenticate, always verify. Especially now, as Ruben said, in the AI era. So AI will be consuming data that is generated by these devices. So if you don't trust the device, you don't trust the data, and then you don't trust the intelligence that you are generating from those devices. So
and I mean, another way of saying it there also is, garbage in, garbage out, one side of it. The other one is security vulnerability can kill the whole process you are doing, because yes, you got some, it's like adding a poison into a big bucket of thing, and then you can't trust anything at that point. Yeah, so you have to make sure you are secure from the beginning. And as you mentioned, I think it has to be authentication process, and all of these has to be added.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pal. And if any audience, if you have any question, maybe we have another couple of minutes for answers, so you can put it in the chat, or else you can reach us through email or messages, so we can lead this to our presenters and get back. But before wind up, I just need one final advice, one word of thought where we can think through for the next week. So from your industry, respective industries. So starting from Bhupinder, last thoughts for feed for the next week.
Yes, and I think I've heard so much about interconnectivity and integration, and really the thought for everyone in the audience is, do not think about the IoT device management in isolation, because we've talked about discovery, we talked about
Exactly.
data consolidation. If there is a bottleneck, if discovery is going to bring you 100,000 devices, where is the bottleneck? I mean, you can't have bottlenecks. Everything needs to be smooth and everything needs to be scaled up at the same time. You can't say, yep, I'm going to discover 10,000 and you're not ready to receive the data. You can't actually stick to the data. Your AI models aren't ready and then your security model is not ready. So it is, think about the holistic view. What are the key components of the end-to-end lifecycle management? And then think about how they need to integrate and then scale up at the same, in a controlled manner.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bhupendra. Charles, any
I-
thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think it's very much along the same lines. It's all coming down to really, I think, two words, the two C's, convergence and context, right? Everything is coming
Right.
together. We need to start looking at things holistically. As I said in the kind of pre-call, many, if not most, of our systems that we use within the enterprise were designed for humans. We broke things down and we created these stovepipes because we had to organize humans that way because humans can only do so many things. But in a machine-driven world where machines are doing the work, those barriers start falling away. And we need to be very careful that we're not making the best buggy whip in an era of the automobile, right? We need to be reimagining how we look at all of that. And probably the most important thing as we're looking at this is we can't look, managing IoT is great, but it's the data that we're getting out of those devices that is what's really, really critical. And that data is mostly critical from a contextual standpoint, right? How does that help us understand the holistic view of what's going on around us in the entire environment? And the better we have that nailed down, the better decisions we're going to be able to make.
Perfect. Convergence and context. Thanks so much, Charles. And next up, Victor, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I will again follow up Charles a little bit. So I think almost every IT person in the world is somehow scared with the quick evolution of IT. Like many of us are like really scared. But still, that's about if we're speaking about like 20 to 30 years plus evolution. No one knows how it's gonna be, like for real. But as for now, we are a bit safe because again, just like I said, the AI within the IoT system, it needs, and I think even in the future, it needs to be constrained. Otherwise, something scary will happen. So again, we are concentrating on building the safe ecosystem because the physical infrastructures, well, they can kill people after all. I mean, if the train derails or something like this happens, this is dangerous. And what we are doing, we are trying surprisingly to constrain the LLMs, the AI, which tries, to be creative and to do something outside of his scope. So yeah, that definitely the future is gonna be very interesting, even the next 5-10 years.
Exactly. That's why we need a safe environment. So, Julio, your thoughts?
Yes, security that requires human intervention doesn't scale at all. So trust must be automated, identities must be managed, and security must scale at the pace of innovation. So we need to, unfortunately, rely on automation and try to reduce the human factor because the scale of these deployments cannot be managed by people.
Definitely makes sense. Ruben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the secure part of it, that's where the management plane come into play. At the early stage, you are setting it up, but then securely, continuously monitoring and making sure there is no bad actor, taking this data away or having some inefficiency built in. I understand it has to be automated to scale this much, but important part of it is how do you deploy those kind of things in a systematic way? Because if you just go and give it to the engine, as we spoke, there can be some rogue agents going around doing things, and then you find out after the fact, and hopefully not killing some people along the way. Yeah? So it is important to automate and do that, but putting enough safeguard around it and making sure that the notifications are going to the right people, and putting those kind of things. Still, I believe, yes, it has to be automated, but it still have some human when there is an abnormal normality, and you can set that up to audiences. So that is a very important part of it. How do you set up the whole framework and get that information out there? Because I still think we need to be in the loop somehow, but don't want to be in every device, every transaction,
Exactly.
but at the whole level.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. So still we have hope for the humanity. So thank you so much, everyone. All the presenters, you guys been amazing. Thank you for sharing your decades of knowledge and experience on this industry. It's definitely new for many of our audience, entrepreneurs who are taking part with the scale you guys experience, and it's an amazing opportunity for everybody. So hope everyone leaves today with a new idea which we can apply in your organization. Well, now we have to wind up the session, and we had an amazing program today. And as Sana request, the entire program is recorded, so you will be getting through email with the recording. And please post your queries, and we will be organizing engagement if you need it. Thank you so much, everyone. Good day, good evening, good night for everyone. Thank you so much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Cheers.